Hello everyone, ArtyAxolotl here. Apologies for this episode not being as high quality, not being the same quality. I never have high quality videos, but not being the same quality as my other ones. I had difficulty recording this, and I ended up having to wait till really late to record this. As in, this is really last minute. It is past midnight on Wednesday, so I have to record and edit this video within a few hours before it is to be released. Hopefully my other videos won't be as last minute, but apologies for any mistakes and for this being lower quality than other videos. Okay, now onto the chapter. Nature has taught creatures to hate by the Polysyndactylon Addict Support Group. Chapter 2. The Many Labors of Mr. Right. Chapter Summary. 1995. Deep down, John still thinks there's such thing as saving people. This is not without consequences. The stone is wet when he lands. The fall is short, but John slips when his feet hit the surface below, his hands coming up before him to shield his fall. Beneath his hands there is a mossy, clinging wetness, and a cold which cuts through his palms and into his bones. Above him, John hears footsteps, running steps. He shoves himself to his feet, fleeing the small square of light from the trapdoor above and rushing blindly into the dark beyond. He holds his hands out before him, searching for a door, a wall, anything but the dark. He's barely 10 steps past where he landed before he can no longer see his hands. His palm strikes against a wall. Another burst of muggy, clinging cold against his skin. Behind him, something lands heavy on the tile, and a grunt follows not a moment later. John darts further into the darkness, a hand braced against the wall. In the dark, John hears footsteps. Mr. Wright's voice follows him, low and calm and entreating. The tunnels are dangerous, Jonathan. John hits another wall. He clamps a hand over his mouth to stop his gasp. They go on for miles, continues Mr. Wright. And the click, click, click of his heels on stone follows his words with hardly a beat between them. You'll be lost. And I won't be able to find you down here, and neither will anyone else. If you wander too deep, you won't be able to find your way back. There's a beat. Mr. Wright's voice grows louder. If you come back now, I won't punish you. We'll pretend it never happened. John's eyes burn. His heart beats so loudly that even Mr. Wright must hear it. For a few minutes, Mr. Wright continues to call him, though he never seems to drift far from the entrance. A few minutes pass, the footsteps retreat across the tile, and there's a scuffle and a slam of the trapdoor. John relaxes. He lets out a ragged, gulping breath. There's a scuttle of footsteps in his direction. John jerks himself backwards. He flees into the dark, feet banging on the cobblestones, footsteps trailing behind. He runs until he can't hear them anymore, the footsteps or Mr. Wright or the sound of his own name. The only sound is the drip, drip, drip of ancient water he could never hope to see, and his own heaving, sobbing gasps. It is dark, and John is afraid. He doesn't dare turn on the flashlight, though. Stays clutched to his chest, a token of the office, more than any actual help, not until he's carefully listened for Mr. Wright for minutes and minutes and minutes more. The beam is yellow and dusty, offering nothing more than a puddle of amber-colored light against the ancient stonework. John sobs when he sees it. Twisting up the halls echoes his sob back to him. With each new iteration, it sounds slightly more distorted and slightly more pain, and in slightly more pain. With a trembling hand, John casts the light about him. The halls are hewn of the same musty, damp stone as the floor beneath, and they are lined with doors every few feet, each of a different shape and height. John creeps forward to the nearest door, a short, circular door made of fossilized wood and rusted brass knobs. It creaks loudly when he opens it, and the sound spirals out and comes back, redoubles, different. Inside there is a single chair turned on its side before a dusty, lonely dining room table. There is no other exit. John pulls back. He drags the beam of light past the hall. With its many lurking doors, he begins to walk. His footsteps ring loudly about him, and when they return, they do not sound like his own. John's shoulders slump forward when the door opens. He hears footsteps approach and sees a pair of shiny black shoes come closer to where he sits. It skirts on the break room couch. There is a blanket around his shoulders and a cup of something warm in his hands. The woman had told him what as she handed it to him. Blonde and brown-eyed, with lipstick smudged over her front tooth, and John can't remember her name or the name of the drink or anything she said. The fluorescents overhead had been buzzing so loudly. They had been so very bright, and he had rinsed and flinched at anyone who came near. He hadn't let them take him to the hospital. He screamed when they tried. There's a monster outside of these walls peering in. He can feel it glaring at him. It is going to eat John as soon as he peeks out after it. The monster had followed him from the tunnels. He is certain on it. He had felt it watching him the moment he stumbled out of that rusted alleyway door. Isolated, hidden from the glare of city lights, John had sobbed when he felt the cool, crisp night air hit his face, clean and sharp the way that follows rain. There were no cars passing in the nearby street, and no people anywhere near the secluded little alcove the house the tunnel's exit. He doesn't know how he made it out of there alive. It felt like he had been wandering for days before he found the door out. The tunnels were labyrinthian and endless, and at times John could swear the walls moved. By the time he finally found the staircase leading up, his throat was painfully dry and his stomach had long since moved past mere hunger pings. He almost didn't find it, John remembers painfully. He wouldn't have even noticed that passageway. It had been so small, barely there, really, and the dim light of the flashlight had only grown weaker. And John wouldn't have dared another small passageway after the last one, even if he had noticed it, except he walked down the other passageway first. The spiders, there had been so many of them. When he fled down the opposite passageway, he found a spiral staircase waiting at its end. Rusted and ancient at the top, it had been a door, an exit. He had staggered through the streets until he found a building labeled police station. He went inside, walked to the front counter, and told the person manning it that he wanted to go home. They had put him in the break room, and John had heard whispers of calling a social worker and an ambulance. Then the mob had retreated, though he could still hear them behind the door whispering. The woman who enters is short and thin, with neatly tucked white shirt beneath her black police vest. She smiles at John when she sees him look. She tells him to call her Olivia. John looks back down. Olivia settles across from John, perched at the edge of an identical couch. "Can I ask your name?" There's a beat. "John," says John eventually. "John Sims." She smiles at him wider, a mix of encouragement and pity. "It's nice to meet you, John Sims. I have to ask you a few questions now, if you don't mind, and then we'll talk about what comes next, all right?" After a minute, John nods just once. "Do you mind if I record?" "I suppose it's all right." Olivia smiles at him again, as if he said the right thing. Out of her pocket, she pulls a tape recorder, and she clicks it on, settling it on the coffee table between them. "Could you repeat your name just once more for the record?" John's lips pinch sharply downward at the sight of the recorder, but he does it regardless of that fact. "Now, John, can you tell me what happened to you?" John had been dreading this part. He flinches. "You'll think me mad." "I promise I won't." John really, really doubts that. He's not stupid. He sounds crazy. A book tried to eat him, so he went to the Magnus Institute for help, and they locked him in a little room and made him record a weird story that made him feel sick. Then he wandered forth forever in a secret network of underground tunnels beneath the Magnus Institute before he finally came here. They're going to say he's making things up again. Adults always say that. "Adults don't like me," John admits shamefully. "I wandered too much." "That what happened to you? You wandered somewhere?" asks Olivia. "No," snaps John, and then he sucks in a breath. "I mean, sort of. I went somewhere, but I knew where I was going, and I was supposed to be back that same day. I don't even know what day it is anymore, and I can't go back. And I couldn't go back." Olivia leans forward. "What happened, John?" "He locked me in a room," says John after a moment, and his voice is soft, and he wouldn't let me leave. "Who is he, John?" presses Olivia. "Do you know his name? Do you know where the room was?" John nods eventually. "His name was Mr. Wright. He works at the Magnus Institute." Olivia's brow furrows. John flinches backwards. "You don't believe me," he says, accusatorial, and pulls his leg to his chest. "Adults never do, and they never help. And you won't help, and Mr. Wright will lock me up again." His voice breaks off into a sob. John, no." Wright settles at his side. "John, can I touch you?" John sobs louder. He gives a slight inclination of his head. Olivia's arms wrap around him, brierly and steady. She tucks John to her chest. "I believe you, John," she says. "We are going to help you, I promise. This is important. I need you to tell me where he locked you up. Did he take you to another building? His house, maybe?" John swipes at his cheeks, the heel of his hand dragging painfully against his skin. Shaking his head, he says we never left the institute. There was an office in the basement. It belonged to a woman named Gertrude. She wasn't in for whatever reason, and the basement was soundproofed, so no one could hear me shouting. No one ever came in sight other than Mr. Wright. Olivia nods, squeezing her eyes shut and shaking her head slightly. All right, John. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to pop off for a moment, and I'm going to have some of my friends out there find Mr. Wright. In the meantime, we'll be taking you to the hospital. Don't worry, I'll be going with you. We're going to fix you up and call your parents. And there will be a bit more questions after that, okay? How does that sound? Olivia does not finish her question. Instead, an odd red gurgling noise comes out of her mouth, and a red line paints itself across her neck. From beneath one ear all the way to the other, something hot, wet, and red splatters across John's face. When John blinks, the scene before him blurs, twists, takes a new shape, and he can finally see the old weathered hand through the plastic of the glove that covers Olivia's mouth. Another hand clamps over John's mouth before he can so much as scream, and it wrenches him from his chair and against someone's side. It doesn't take long for her to stop moving. John watches as it happens. You are a very, very stupid boy, hissed Mr. Wright, low and furious in John's ear. I would have let her live if you just kept your stupid mouth shut. I wouldn't have even let you go. I would have even let you go. John tries to scream. Mr. Wright's hand clamps down harder, forcing his jaw shut with a bone-cracking snap. We are going to walk out there together, he hisses, and you are not going to make a single sound. You are to walk quietly outside. If you so much as whimper, you will die, and so will the other people in the room. You are not going to run. You are going to do exactly as I say. Nod if you understand. John nods frantically. Mr. Wright releases him. John falls to the ground, his jaw clamped tightly shut and his hands coming up over his head. Mr. Wright pays him little heed, instead scooping up the tape recorder from the table, not even clicking it off before setting it in his pocket. He begins to look over the scene around them with a careful eye. And it is in that moment that John realizes his clothes are covered in plastic and his shoes have slips over them. And there are gloves covering his bloody red hands, and a net covering his hair, and a mask covering his face. John's read more than a few grisly detective novels in his day. There won't be any evidence to be found. Olivia sits on the couch, eyes still open, staring at nothing. Blood leads from the slit in her neck, turning her shirt from white to a sticky, leaking red. It trails down the length of her arm, down the line of her fingers, dripping a small puddle on the floor. John picks up her wrist in his hand. He gives it a small shake. Olivia? It's more of a breath than a sound, soft, barely there. Mr. Wright doesn't so much as glance at him. Olivia does not move, because dead people never do. John thinks she's dead. He thinks it's his fault. John gives it another slight shake. Olivia, please, you promised. Mr. Wright glares at him that time. He takes a step towards John. John's whispers become more urgent, more afraid. There's a scream in his throat, but he doesn't let it out, not with Mr. Wright so close. He's a coward. There's a police station full of cops past that door, and Jonathan Sims is a coward. Because he won't dare signal a single one of them. Not with Mr. Wright right there with his knife and his anger and the way he impossibly twists John's sight. John swipes at his eyes, and he smears blood across his face, and his tears mix with it as they stream. He's a monster. He's gonna take John back. Please, whispers John. Please, I'm afraid. Mr. Wright's hand clamps over John's mouth once more. He jerks John back by the throat and makes him stand. Not a sound, he hisses, and he moves him towards the door. No one looks towards the door as it opens. No one looks towards John and Mr. Wright as they step out. John led by the arm, and both covered in blood. It's like they can't see him. It's like they're not even there. Mr. Wright squeezes John's arm painfully. John walks. He hears them as he passes. They're talking about Olivia. They're talking about John. As if one was still alive and the other wasn't doomed. Do you think she's doing all right in there? Asks one, sipping at a mug. He's talking about poor dead Olivia with her shirt soaked in blood. I mean, she must be. She hasn't come out yet. His deskmate shakes her head. Poor kid seems scared to death, she says, and she's talking about John, who is inches from her, and he is so afraid. She's gonna get through to him, though. She's good with kids. They don't turn to look. No one does. Mr. Wright leads John out of the building and onto the street. He keeps dragging John down the road, turning around one corner and then another, and they pass a man sitting on the street corner. Awake and staring ahead, scuffing his shoe against the sidewalk and flipping a coin in one hand, he whistles an unfamiliar tune. His tune does not falter as they pass, and he continues to flip his coin. He does not blink as John's feet drag straight past his spot and leaving an imprint of his sneaker tread on the sharp red outline. His eyes maintain their distant, unfocused look. It's like John's a ghost. It's like he's already dead. Mr. Wright drags him for another few blocks before tossing John into the passenger seat of a van. As the door slams behind him, he hears the wail of sirens start up in the distance. Mr. Wright climbs into the driver's seat a moment later. He inserts the keys into the ignition, and he does not turn them. There are going to be consequences for that, he spits. He does not so much as look at John. Considerable consequences. You killed her, says John, panic climbing in his chest, and he wishes he had screamed while they were still in the station. He thinks it might have been better to die there than die wherever Mr. Wright is taking him. His vision blurs, though he doesn't think it's Mr. Wright's doing this time. He can't stop the tears as they flood his cheeks. You're crazy. Mr. Wright gives him a nasty look. Now you're getting it. John flinches. There will be cameras in the station, he babbles. He's trying. He can't seem to stop. They'll catch you. The police are going to discover that all their cameras stopped working all at once, says Mr. Wright, his voice like ice. Temperamental things. They short-circuited before you even walked in the doors. You were too petrified to tell them much of anything when you first came in, so they don't even have your name, let alone mine. And I have only a recording of telling of either. The only physical evidence they will find will be of you, fingerprints or otherwise. And I very much doubt you already have a record in the system. All I have is your face, and you were covered in diatress in your own snot when you came in. They won't have an accurate description, and they are unlikely to trace your presence there. They certainly won't be able to trace my presence there. Now I suggest you start thinking very hard of ways you might survive this night, because your actions so far haven't exactly endeared yourself to me. Mr. Wright keeps the car engine off for another few minutes, until the sirens have long since reared past. Then he starts the car and he pulls down one side road, then another, till John can barely tell where they are. Mr. Wright doesn't look at John. He keeps his eyes on the road. John's eyes dart to the door. It's locked. He isn't wearing a seatbelt. Child locks typically only functional on back doors. The front doors usually just pop open when you try the handle. You can usually open the locks manually, even when they don't. Mr. Wright isn't looking at John. John isn't wearing a seatbelt. The car slows to a stop. When John looks up, he sees the red glow of the stoplight. He waits until it changes to green, waits for Mr. Wright to begin to move once more, and then dives for the door. It opens. John tumbles to the pavement. The wind is knocked out of him when he fell. He walks backwards, his arm pinned beneath his body and legs sprayed out every which way, and his vest hurts something terrible. Though it's not broken. John broke his ankle once, and it's not nearly the same feel. The car moves a few precious extra meters before Mr. Wright thinks to engage the brakes. Jonathan? But John is already darting down the side road. He doesn't make the mistake of stopping again. Mr. Wright hadn't taken the money from his pockets when he locked John up. There's enough left for a one-way ticket to Bournemouth. John scrubs the blood from his face in the train station bathroom, and it's early enough in the day that there's no one there to see it. From there he barely makes it onto the early train, though no one pays him much mind as he sprints to the station. I wonder if it's for the same reason that no one paid him much mind on a trip as Bournemouth. Much mind on his trip from Bournemouth. Blood on his fingers and terror on his face, and a book that kills on his back. John wonders which is the part of him which makes people not want to help. Tucking himself into the corner of his seat, he begins to consider his plan, and the fact that he very much doesn't have one. His eyes begin to burn again. He wants his mum. John swipes at his eyes with the back of his hand. He can't afford to lose his nerve now, or lose it anymore, considering his will and already lost it no small number of times already. Mr. Wright is going to come after him again. He's got some kind of magic sight thing. He's going to kill John, more likely than not, if he catches him again. Tommy Bradstock is at home waiting for him. John can't leave Nan to him. He can't leave her to Mr. Wright should Mr. Wright decide to come after her as well. He's going to go get her, and he's going to tell her what happened, and she's going to believe him, and they're going to drive very far away together. They won't stop driving until it's safe, and then they'll be safe, and it will be over. It's going to be okay. John's going to be safe. He really wishes he had his mom. John's always been a terrible runner. He's never cared to listen when the gym teachers tell him to do laps. Preferring to find a nice tree out of sight to sit under and suffer the trip to the principal's office when he inevitably gets caught. He had always been more of the bookish sort. That is not to say, however, that being bookish sort kept him out of trouble. He got into plenty of it. He just preferred to walk his way out of it than run. He got caught a lot, come to think of it. As he sprints from the train station, he wishes that he had gotten better at it, the running thing. He's had to do quite a bit in the past few days. He has got to do more of it now if he is going to outrun the thing that is not Tommy Bradstock. The train station isn't nearly as big as the one in London, and John clears its doors easily. Dan's house is too far to make on foot, and his bus pass is still in his pocket as well. And the nearest stop is not far outside of that station. John collapses on the bench and waits. All at once the absurdity of his situation strikes him. He's on the run for his life, twice over, from an office work and a bully full of rebs. A burglar tried to eat him, he got kidnapped, and he's sitting on a bench waiting for a bus. John laughs, and he pretends it's the reason for all the trembling. He's still shaking when the bus arrives. The stop nearest his house is a good half-an-hour wait. John spends the ride perched at the edge of the seat nearest the door, gripping the vinyl seat cover, flinching at every bump. When the doors crane themselves open, he's off like a shot, more tripping down the stairs than ascending them. The car parked outside Nan's house. It is not Nan's car. It also isn't Mr. Wright's car, which gives John hope. The exterior is slightly shiny gray. The car itself is obviously expensive, and not the sort of car that you always hear associated with kidnappers. It's not a beat-up van, at least. John slows to a stop. He could still turn around, he thinks. He could get back on the bus and ride as far as he could go, and then get on another bus, and then another. He could turn his life into an endless stream of buses and never, ever have to deal with whatever's waiting in the house. His feet begin to move once more slowly. He crosses the driveway and the lawn and ascends the steps leading up to the door like a man mounting a gallows. Nan is still inside. It's as simple as that. John places his hand on the doorknob. The metal is cold as ice and bites into his palm, stinging with the intensity of the chill. With a sharp intake of breath, John yanks his hand back, staring down at the door in shock. From the crack beneath the door, tendrils of fog leaks out. Icy white and biting cold. John stumbles backwards. He can see more fog now, nipping at his ankles, dissipating against the pavement. It continues steadily creeping out the door. John swallows. He looks back over the lawn and at the freedom of the road behind. The fog has not yet reached the street. It swirls low against the grass, thin and faint, and John could so easily outpace it. He could get back on the bus. He could run. He didn't have to open the door. Banana's still inside. John can feel it. In the back of his mind, John can still see poor, dead Tommy Brastoff as he was before the spiders. As he was when he knocked on the door. There had been a moment, the second where the door creaked open the doors. There's a gasp before a scream gone. John can see it when he closes his eyes. There had been that moment after, too, that strange conviction that dawned on him as the door closed once more. John had known in that moment after, that Tommy Brastoff would still be alive if he did not have met the misfortune that was Jonathan Sims. There had been another conviction that followed not so much as a second later. It had been the foolish, bull-headed certainty that John could have done something to save him, had he done anything at all. Maybe that's why John turns that bitterly cold knob. Maybe he had been so stupidly operated on the belief that there'd been such a thing as saving people. Or maybe he had simply not wanted another person to die in his place. John could never quite figure out which it had been after. There is more fog in the Sims house. It licks up the walls, frothing around the photographs, misting about the dim light, slowly swinging above. The chill intensifies the moment he crosses the threshold. John gasps against the painful pinch of the cold in his lungs. The hallway is dark, and the shadows seem to writhe in the corner of his eye, stretching long and menacing against the single mounted lamp. It makes a small, teeny squeak as it rocks methodically above John's head, caught in the wind he cannot feel. John takes another step. The hall seems to lengthen before him. Takes another step. He thinks he can hear voices. Takes another step. The voices grow stronger. The chill follows suit. The path to the kitchen is far longer than it should be, and John can barely see through the fog. In the dim, by the time he can finally trace the carpet of the hall for the kitchen's tile, the cold is almost malicious now, clawing at John's arms and at the insides of his lungs, and his breath comes a ragged, terrified gulps. Nan sits at the kitchen table, seemingly unconcerned with the fog and the chill. With her sits a man, young, clad in a dark blue jacket with brilliant gold buttons. His hair is stark white despite his age, and his dark beard does nothing further to provide color. His entire body appears to be leached of it, drained empty like the photo negative of a man rather than a man itself. He is paler than any man John has ever seen. His eyes, too, such an odd faint gray that they could almost fade into the white of his scar. There are teacups between them, full and unsteaming. It doesn't look like either of them have had so much as a sip. There's also a book, something thick and old and bound in leather that, though John can't quite make out the title from where he stands. There's a strange design on its cover, a maze of embossed gold, one that almost seems to writhe against the dark brown of the leather. It does not look at John, and neither does the man. "Do you have any family?" asks the man, and he turns and he winks at John as he says it, other than the little one, that is. John flinches backwards. "No, just Jonathan," says Nan. Her voice is far away as she says it. It isn't like her. Nan is firm, and Nan is present, and Nan is sharper than any knife could be. Nan had been a mountain in his mind for as long as John had memory, and she had all of its unshakable nature. She shouldn't be like this. His father was my only child, and my husband passed on years ago. It's just us. "Must be a comfort," says the man, though he says it like he doesn't believe it himself. "Like a little piece of his father he must be." "He's nothing like his father," says Nan immediately. "All his mother, every last bit of him, a carbon copy of her, really." "Oh." The man sounds interested now. "Did you like her? His mother, that is." "No." John makes a choked, keening noise, something almost animal in the way that it hurts. He takes a stumbling step forward. "She was an inconsiderate girl. John was inconsiderate. Far too flighty. John was flighty. She hadn't an ounce of sense to her. She'd run off without thinking that everyone else would be left to deal with the fallout. This was John. John, and people hated him for it." "Really," says the man. "Must have been a relief for you, then, that the little one ran off. Sounds like he was causing problems." "No," Nan frowns. She shifts in her seat to blinking, and confusion and concern crinkles at the corners of her eyes. "He is my grandson. I have a responsibility to him, and I want him safe." John says, "Nan," and his voice is watery and weak. "Nan, I'm here." He reaches out, grabs her by the sleeve, but she doesn't even glance down at the hand around her wrist. John gives it a small shake. He's trying again. He hasn't noticed starting. The man grins at him, offers him another wink. "Nan, please," says John, and he edges closer to her side, turning a shoulder to the man and his awful, awful grin. He doesn't know he's trying to shield Nan from him or to shield himself. "Let's leave." He gives her wrist another shake, trying harder. "Why won't you look at me?" Nan's frown deepens. Her face adopts a hard look, one John is more than a little familiar with. For a moment he thinks it's directed at him. "Who did you say you were with again?" Nan asked the man. "Was it the police?" "Oh goodness, no. I'm just helping out a mutual friend, let's call him. He has a vested interest in John's safe retrieval." John swipes at his cheeks with the heel of his hand in a futile attempt to clear away the tears and the mess. The man is watching him still and this close. His pale eyes look like they're made of glass. John shrinks closer against Nan's shoulder, trying to hide himself in the fabric of her shirt. "Nan, please," he babbles, pulling at her wrist more urgently now. "Please, just wake up. We can get in the car and we can go away, and I want to go away now. I don't want to do this anymore. Please, please, please." "Oh, Johnny," says the man. He sounds genuinely sympathetic as he says it. "It's far too late for that." And the fog eats Nan. It bites up her ankles, climbing the length of her legs and wrapping around her torso like snakes, then cycling higher up like it covers her head entirely, and then she's just gone, swallowed. She hadn't even the time to scream. John falls to the space where she sat, slamming her chair with his elbows, setting it crashing sideways against the tile. John's knees hit the floor and Nan isn't there. She's gone like poor dead Tommy Brastoff, and perhaps she'll come back too, fog clamoring from her mouth and eyes made of glass. Perhaps she'll want to eat John too, and John will let her, because his biggest mistake was not getting eaten in the first place and saving everyone else the trouble. Or maybe she won't come back. Maybe she's dead. Maybe it's John's fault. The man stands from his seat. He rounds the table, fog swirling thickly around him, and the clack of his heels on the tile echoed loudly through the house. He stopped at John's side. There now, don't cry," he says. "She'll be back. Oh, well, maybe not. Still not a reason to cry," he eyes John with an unconcealed interest, like the older boys on the playground do before they light a firecracker in an anthill. "She didn't even like you, you know." "She was my Nan," says John, and he wonders when that stopped being enough to prove love. Perhaps he's never been the sort where simply being family meant that they would love you. "She was all I had." "What did you do?" "Oh, I just sent her somewhere else for a bit. Bit of a lonely woman, your Nan. Not much friends. Didn't like her family. Held up well against, but everyone has their breaking points. Bring her back here." "You know I would, but—" The man feigns thoughtfulness for a moment before shaking his head. "Well, honestly, I just don't want to." John lounges for him. With a delighted laugh, the man catches him, easily holding him at a distance. John squirms, trying to wrench himself free, but his hand on his shoulder is strong, and the pressure clams hard on his collarbone enough to bruise. "Easy now," says the man, still chuckling. "I'm not the one you have to convince to bring your Nan back." "Who then?" "Aren't you supposed to be clever? I hope this wasn't a wasted trip." John goes slack in his grip, and the fear begins in his gut. Percolates, drips outward. He feels cold. He doesn't know if it's the fear of the fog. "Mr. Wright." "There you are, Johnny," says the man, encouraging. "You might survive yet. He's the next room over. And I suggest you don't keep him waiting any more than you already have." He releases his arm. Off you pop. The man has Nan. Mr. Wright could get her back. John swallows. He goes to the next room. When he enters, the fog does not enter with him. Mr. Wright is in the side room, which Nan calls her drawing room, and John calls it the boring room. He isn't allowed inside. Nan keeps her most uncomfortable furniture in this room. the sort that is polished and stiff and only gets satin if Nan has ladies from the book club over, which is what she calls it when she invites her old friends over, essentially to read the Bible. But John knows that's a lie because Nan isn't even religious, and also he eavesdropped once. Mrs. Pensteinmans is married to some old rich businessman, and is all. And so is Mrs. Reeves and Mrs. Blake, and Nan has a good head for numbers and work in stocks before she retired. They all get together once every few weeks and make boring conversations about the husband's works. There's a lot of boring numbers and trading talk, and they move money into accounts that the husbands don't know about. They never even crack the Bible. Nan lets John select any book he'd like from the bookstore once a month, as long as he keeps quiet on that fact, and John doesn't see why anyone would be interested in it anyway. Miss Wright is seated in the chair to the right where Mrs. Pensteinmans usually sits when she visits. He smiles icily at John when he steps in the room. John blinks. He glances behind him, then turns fully when he sees the kitchen behind him. There isn't any fog. It's empty. Nan isn't there, neither is the man who took her. Swallowing hard, John turns back. Miss Wright nods to the seat across from him, and he raises a brow. John nods, his heart hammering in his chest. He crosses the room, and he sits in the seat which usually belongs to Mrs. Blake. Miss Wright stares at him from across the coffee table. Something else stares at him through the windows at his back. John says, "Bring Nan back." Miss Wright smiles thinly. "Do you really think you're in the position to be making requests right now, Jonathan?" "Aye," John swallows. He rubs his palms against his pant legs. "I want her back." "I told you there would be consequences. Why shouldn't I just let you live with them?" "Give her back. Do not raise your voice to me." John flinches hard. Miss Wright presses his lips together and watches him through narrowed eyes. "I do not want this to happen again, Jonathan," he says. "These dramatics, the running, the trouble with the police, this ridiculousness with running to a woman who doesn't even want you. It would be best if you just proceed without them. Wouldn't you agree?" John does not reply. "I would like to make a deal with you. If you agree, I will have Mr. Lucas return your grandmother to a standard plane of existence. Does that sound nice?" John does not reply. He ducks his head. "With your words, Jonathan." "Yes," says John softly. "Excellent." Leaning forward, Mr. Wright claps his hands. John shrinks back at the noise. "I already have the papers prepared." John blinks. "Papers?" "Our arrangement," says Mr. Wright crisply, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a neatly folded sheet. "Mr. Lucas will return your grandmother, and I promise you will not be touched as long as you do not make any contact with her whatsoever." "I can't talk to her," says John, alarmed. He jumps in his seat. "She's my Nan." Miss Wright gives him a tired look. "I believe it has been very well established that she does not care to maintain contact with you, even if I left the option open." John can't exactly argue that point. He's known it for quite some time now. Mr. Wright unfolds the paper, places it on the coffee table between them. From his other pocket he produces a pen, heavy and black with silver etchings, and he sets that beside. And John does not reply. He bites down on his lip hard. "Upon your agreement, you will be coming with me. There will be no more contacting the police, understood? I really would rather you not cause so many deaths, Jonathan. It is getting troublesome to clean up after you." John can feel his heartbeat hammer in his throat, his chest, his wrists. He stares at the pen, then down at his hands. curling tight against his pant legs. "What's going to happen to me if I go with you? You needed worrying about that." John starts to cry, silent and frightened. Sighing, Mr. Wright settles back in his seat, an impatient look on his face. He raises an eyebrow and waits. "Why are you doing this?" His shoulders shudder as he cries harder. "Why won't you just let me go?" John does not expect an answer. The sort of thing he feels he is meant to say. This sort of scenario is the sort of thing a character in one of his books would say. He says it simply to say something, because if he says something, then that is another moment in which he does not have to pick up that pen, and another moment in which he does not have to sign. He's putting off the inevitable, but he doesn't expect to do much past that. When Mr. Wright speaks, his voice is thoughtful. "There's an experiment I've been considering for quite some time. I think you'll do nicely for it." John doesn't understand, but he supposes he was never meant to. He sniffles. He thinks of poor dead Tommy Rasdorf and of Nan in the fog. He thinks he can do a single good thing for any of them now, and take away the thing which caused their misfortune. "Tommy Rasdorf, too," says John, glancing up. "The thing that ate him, I don't want it to get Nan." Mr. Wright gives a slight incline of his head. "It will be handled." John supposes there is not much left to be done. He picks up the pen. His hand trembles as he takes it in his hand, far too heavy, far too cold. The curved, diamond-shaped engraving on its shaft, pressed against the pads of his fingers, it nearly hurts. He leans over the page, then frowns, pulling back slightly. "This is an employment contract," says John. He looks up at Mr. Wright. "I don't understand." Your understanding is hardly necessary for your signature." John opens his mouth. The look on Mr. Wright's face kills his voice before it leaves his throat. He closes it again. It's not like signing the paper will do anything to him. People can quit jobs, and it's not like anything signed by an 8-year-old kidnapping victim is going to hold up in a court of law. He lowers the pen to the paper that pauses. "What is it now, Jonathan?" I don't know, cursive." Mr. Wright's tone brokers no further delay. "Print will do nicely." Flinching, John nods once, then lowers the pen to the bold, thick line. Looking at the paper's bottom in thin, clumsy letters, he writes his name. Nothing happens. Blinking, John leans back, so clenching the pen in one hand. A part of him had expected something more, worse, something magic. Instead, he just feels tired and empty and trapped. He's run out of places to hide and is too tired to run. He just wants it to be over. There's a certain numbness to it, being caught. Hope is a vicious, fluttery thing. Something that hammers in your ribcage, carves out a home for itself in your chest, pours itself into your pulse until your heart can barely take it. But when it's gone and its horrible knocking has ceased, everything feels emptier. Everything feels still. John feels like a grave already dug, waiting all the same inevitability for the corpse to fill it. He wants his mum. Mr. Wright picks up the paper with a satisfied air. He refolds the paper and sits in his pocket before standing. He holds his hand to John. "Let's have a word with Mr. Lucas, shall we?" John ignores the hand, staggering to his feet. He ducks to his side, arranging himself as far from Mr. Wright as he thinks Mr. Wright would allow. Mr. Wright rolls his eyes, but he says nothing. The man is sitting at the table again when John and Mr. Wright walk through. Nan is not. Mr. Wright holds a cigar in one hand, end red and burning in the sharp contrast to the odd dullness of the room. As John watches, he exhales. A large plume of smoke drafts from between his lips, and pale and curling. Its breadth reaches far past what a single person could hold in their lungs, and goes further until the entire room is cast in a clouded haze. John thinks Mr. Lucas is empty. thinks Mr. Lucas is nothing but smoke and echoing hollow nothingness, and if John were to touch him, he'll be nothing but a cloud. When he finishes exhaling, he puts out the cigar on Nan's table. John watches as the embers burn red before burning out, leaving behind chalky, dry ash and a jagged circle of black. Nan hates smoking. She thinks it's a dirty habit and doesn't allow it anywhere near her house. All done, then, says Mr. Lucas, and he stands, stretching his arms high over his head. He frowns down at John. Bit scrawny, isn't he? Are you sure he's worth the trouble? Worried, Peter. Mr. Lucas shrugs unbothered. Not really my concern what you do with your free time. He looks at John like a speck of dust. Can always turn him over to me if he doesn't pan out, yeah? Looks like he might starve off hunger for a bit. John takes a half step behind Mr. Wright. Mr. Lucas laughs merrily. That's enough, Peter. Mr. Wright settles a properly hand on John's shoulder, and John hates him. And he wishes he could claw his own arm from its socket and leave it dangling from his grip. He'd laugh as the blood dripped on Nan's clean tile, and he'd run from the house and leave it all behind, the arm and the man who owns it. John doesn't think he could ever take something Mr. Wright owned. He'd rather be without an arm than belong to Mr. Wright. Hand on his shoulder squeezed lightly, as if he knew what John was thinking. We've come to an accord. Bring her back now. Mr. Lucas shrugs again. Nothing much seemed important to him, least of all Nan. It's like a curtain parting. The mouth of the fog-filled place opens itself in Nan's kitchen then, and the kitchen wraps itself around it, recoiling and retching and twisting itself away from the cold and the hunger. And the place of fog is not real, and reality can never, ever let itself touch it, and it will rip itself apart to keep the two separate. The mouth bites into Nan's kitchen, and reality lets it. It leaves behind the mist and the cold and the deep, pervasive ache in John's bones. When the mouth closes again, Nan is left behind, prone and trembling on the kitchen tile. Her hair glistens, still damp, and she smells of sea and old wet air. Nan. Mr. Wright stops him. The pressure on his shoulder is light. 2 fingers pushing harder. No more, just enough to be noticeable, but its meaning is clear. And it is clear that Mr. Wright has no interest in greater exertion when it comes to managing John. John stops because Tommy Bradstoff is dead and Olivia is dead and Nan isn't dead but could be, and John would much rather be gone than have to live with more people dead in his place. Nan's voice is breathy, fragile thing when she speaks. She says John's name. That's more than enough of that, says Mr. Wright promptly, and those 2 fingers apply pressure again, and they jerk John off towards the door. Peter, will you tidy up loose ends here? I think it would be best to get John in the car. He's had a long day. The 2 fingers press again. John swallows hard, but his tongue is too thick in his mouth, and his pulse is beating too hard he can barely breathe. When the fingers press again, they hurt. John sets off towards the door without a word. That's my grandson, says Nan, her voice barely a whisper. It's hoarse. John wonders if she had been straining wherever she was. Stop. Easy there, says Mr. Lucas. John's head snaps round when he hears his boots cross the tile. He grips Nan by the arm, helping her to her feet and pulling her to the table. This is going to be nothing but a bad dream soon. Anne tugs against his hold. Stop it, she says, still hoarse, but adopting one of the faint fluntier edges usually reserved for John's worst days. That's my grandson, that's... You let him go. Mr. Wright steers John to the door, his hand firm on his shoulder. Eyes forward, Jonathan. John keeps his eyes on Nan. He half stumbles forward, Mr. Wright dragging him towards the door at a pace he can hardly match. He almost trips, but Mr. Wright keeps him standing. Nan spins on Mr. Lucas. She goes for his eyes. Sighing, he catches her hand with ease, shoving her roughly into the table. Nan cries out, but Mr. Lucas simply picks the book off the table, flips to a page midway through. John stops dead. Mr. Wright drags him forward, his feet skid against the tile. "You said you wouldn't touch her," says John, swatting uselessly at the hand gripping his shoulder. He skidded a few more inches forward and stretches John at the wrists instead. "Stop it." "Here you go, Dran," says Mr. Lucas. He shoves the book directly in her line of sight. "Time to calm down now." Nan wrenches her face away. "John," she says. She doesn't say anything else because her eyes catch sight of the book. Her voice drops away all of a sudden, as if in the trance. She takes the book from Mr. Lucas's hands. She sticks it down on the floor like a child. Her hair falls on her face as she leans over the page, mouth slightly forming words as she reads. Miss Wright pulls him fully into the hall, and the walk to the door isn't nearly as long as it had been when John first entered the house. Soon the warmth of the mid-morning sun is hot against his skin, and the door is swinging shut behind them. Miss Wright marches John to the waiting car. "What was that book?" demands John, yanking at his arm. "Is it going to hurt her?" "It will do no lasting damage," says Mr. Wright shortly, and he opens the car door. "In you go, Jonathan." John's jaw clenches. He opens his mouth. "I really would not argue," warns Mr. Wright. "We are still in your grandmother's driveway." John snaps his mouth shut again. He climbs into the car, and the door shuts behind him. A moment later, Mr. Wright gets into the passenger seat. The doors lock pointedly. The inside of the car is outfitted in rich dark leather. It still smells new, apart from the faint lingerings of salt air. Only a few minutes pass before Mr. Lucas comes out. When he climbs into the driver's seat, a smell of salt grows stronger. "All taken care of," says Mr. Lucas, jovial, and he starts the ignition. "You'll owe me for this one, James." "Your assistance is always appreciated, Peter," says Mr. Wright agreeably. "Seatbelt, Jonathan." John's eyes burn. He puts his seatbelt on in a single robotic motion, and the car pulls out of the driveway. Mr. Wright and Mr. Lucas keep on a running dialogue, but John can't make out a word past the pulse flying in his ears. He's afraid. He's so stupid. He wishes he had turned around and ran when he had the chance. He wishes he never opened the door. He wishes he never read the book. It had been easy to decide to be brave when he was in the same position he had been with Tommy Bradstoff. Watching the person who was about to be killed in his place from a safe distance. He just hadn't wanted anyone else to die because of him. But he had never been in Tommy Bradstoff's place. Not before now. He had never been the one on the verge of dying or something worse. He doesn't want to die. He begins to cry again. He doesn't dare try the door. Mr. Wright isn't the sort of man who makes the same mistake twice. The car stops sooner than John thinks it should. He expects London. He expects the Magnus Institute with its awful basement and dark, twisting tunnels. But not even 15 minutes has passed when Mr. Lucas pulls off to the side of a bumpy gravel road which borders the forest. John's heart leaps into his throat. A moment later it calms slightly. Mr. Wright's car is parked a few meters further on the same road. Is that it then? Just a change of cars. John eyes the trees. He knows how deep the forest goes and how good it is for hiding things. The door is unlocked. Come along, Jonathan. John supposes there isn't much more he can do about it. He doesn't think running will work, and he can't fight. He gets out of the car. "And where are you going?" John stops midway to make Mr. Wright's car. "I thought..." Mr. Wright nods to the trees just once, swallowing. John says, "Oh," and he follows. Mr. Lucas comes along, though he doesn't speak. He walks with them parallel through the trees, silent and at a distance. At times John can hear him whistling a slow, haunting tune. He stops at cry again partway through the march. They are deep in the trees by the time the first tear falls, and John doesn't think he'll ever be found. Mr. Wright notices and he stops, turning towards him with a sigh. "What is it now?" "I won't run again," mumbles John, hiccuping out a sob. "I promise. Can we go back to the car now?" Mr. Wright pinches the bridge of his nose. "You're not out here to hurt you." John sniffles. "Do you promise?" He feels foolish the moment it leaves his lips. Mr. Wright's promise isn't worth a thing. Another heavy sigh. "We are here to fulfill a part of our deal. I do not go through all this trouble just to dispose of your corpse in the woods. No delays now." Mr. Wright brings them to the tree where John hid the book. The tree waits in a gangled patch, brittle, twisted, with barely enough space for the book in the crevice. Its bark, however, seems to roll and twitch as John stares, as if it was made of a buzzing, writhing static. When they round to the other side of the tree, John at last sees the source. A thing that is not Tommy Bastoff sits at the tree's base, chained and convulsing. From his every orifice crawls spiders, fleeing him as if he were building half-burnt. They scale the tree in a wave, covering almost every inch of its bark, and steady set about encasing it in web. The thing that is not Tommy Bastoff grins when it sees John, and more spiders crawl eagerly from the gap between its teeth. "John," it says, and there's hardly anything left of Tommy Bastoff's voice. It tries to stand, but the shuddering grows worse as it tries to bend Tommy's knees, and the skin of its joints splits like wet tissue. More spiders pour out. "A temporary house," says Mr. Wright distastefully. "Never keep for long." He turns to John, eyebrow raised. "Satisfied?" John takes a tripping step backwards. He stares at the thing that is not Tommy Bastoff and stares back. "I thought you might have some concerns over it," continues Mr. Wright, unbothered, and he nudges away a particularly large spider with his shoe and a wrinkle of his nose. "Seems I was right. This will fulfill the last part of our bargain." He casts an impatient glance far off from where they came. "Peter?" He turns back towards John. "Watch carefully now, Jonathan." Fog starts to creep in. It circles around the soles of John's feet, and the cold bites through the rubber. "It's all right now, John," says the thing that's not Tommy Bastoff. It smiles to Tommy Bastoff's perfect white teeth, and John can see the web and the web and the web behind. "You can still knock." The fog inches higher. It's at the ankles now. "I don't want to watch," whispers John, but he doesn't look away. There's a thing at his back. It watches Mr. Wright, and it watches the thing that is not Tommy Bastoff, and it watches John. "Mrs. Spider's door is always open to you. You'll always be able to find it," it tells Tommy's neck sharply, nearly parallel with the swirling fog beneath, twisting to look at Mr. Wright. "The web will protect you. It will keep you bundled up safe, and you will have a million friends to guard you." "Please stop," says John. "Please just stop it." He doesn't know who he's talking to, Mr. Wright or Mr. Lucas or the thing that isn't Tommy. He thinks it's all of them. He just wants it to be over. He covers his ears, but that isn't enough to block out Tommy's voice. It tells him that he knows where the door is. He'll never not know. And one day he'll decide to knock, and the web will love him so much for it. The fog rises over them like a wave. It's bitterly cold and too thick to see, and when it lowers, the chains are empty and Tommy is gone. John read a story once. It had been far too old for him. and there had been too many tangled, twisty sentences and names with odd spellings. But the collection had been all that Nan had gotten him at the thrift store that day, and John had been so terribly bored. He read the entire thing in a day and spent the days following trying to elevate the sick, unsettled feelings which had nested beneath his skin with each story. In this story, there was a man who was not a very good friend, and the man who was not a friend at all. The second man tricks the first into following him down into the basement. He locks him down there and steals him up forever. John always wondered if it had taken long for the man to die. He wonders what the man had thought about it happened. The story ends with the knowledge that the man was never found, and John always suspected that was because no one had particularly wanted to look. If John were asked, he'd likely say that what he thinks is going to happen when he climbs into Mr. Wright's car. He thinks of the tunnels, the awful damp, the awful dark, and he thinks that is where Mr. Wright will make John's tomb. He imagines the cold, slimy wetness of the stones and the frigid sting of the air scraping against the insides of his lungs. He doesn't think he'll ever be found. He doesn't think anyone will care to look. Mr. Wright does not take him back to the Magus Institute. If John were ever to be asked, Mr. Wright took him, he'll say it was nowhere. It wasn't really a place, it was an in-between, a waiting place. It was only ever meant to be as permanent as a chrysalis. He had a lot of time to consider his answer, to set the words in time like a domino set the fall. He was nowhere. He stayed there for a long time. No one ever asks.